What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday weekend. In this week's episode, I'm going to show you a pretty much color correction of this client of mine. She hasn't colored her hair in over a year, so her roots are super grown out, and then you can see she has like some old balayage on the end. I don't know if you guys can tell from the lighting in this video, but her ends like in person looked almost like a neon sunflower yellow tone. And it doesn't look like what the hair naturally looks like if the color faded. Like, this doesn't look like a raw lift at all. It looks like there is some sort of color in her hair. So I definitely asked her what her history was, what she's put on her hair, and she did express to me that she has put brown Overtone in her hair. If you guys don't know, Overtone is like a color depositing like conditioner product that is marketed to color the hair, and some of the products can even color like dark hair. So in my experience with lifting clients that have used Overtone, it always kind of lifts kind of funky. A lot of times my clients who have used like maybe the pink or the purple, it always lifts like a hot pink or like a coral color. So it's really good to explain this to your client before you lighten them, that, you know, if they've used Overtone, your hair might lighten a little funky, and we'll just have to work with whatever it lightens to, because obviously that's not your fault as a hairdresser. So it's good. I've already explained to her in our consultation that we'll just have to tone her to whatever she lifts to. I mean, her goal essentially was to get as light as possible and ashy as possible with having some pink underneath the natural tone. So I am just going in with some lightener and balayaging her. She wanted a look that was going to be more solid, so I am just weaving her back to back, doing my chunky highlights on the bottom here, and then doing more of like a baby light on the very top. And you can also see that like the part that is already kind of blonde, some of it isn't totally a level 9 or 10 like some of the hair is. So I am going in with two different formulas to lighten her up. So as I'm balayaging her and I'm lightening up that dark regrowth, I'm using my Blonde Me and 6 in 20 to start off with. And then I'm picking out some of the pieces that are about, I would say like a level 7 and below, where the lightened pieces are. And for that formulation, I am picking them out and lightening them up with some Pulp Bright Blonde AF, which is a very gentle lightener. And for my first bowl with that, I mixed in a little bit of Olaplex just to preserve the health of her hair. And again, the reason why I'm using these two different lighteners is because in my experience using Blonde Me, it's a pretty strong and fast lifting lightener. So that's why I like to use it a lot on my clients who are naturally dark and have coarser hair. So I'm using that for the darker area, and from my experience using the Pulp Bright Blonde AF, it is a very gentle lightener. So it doesn't lift super quick, it does lift pretty slow, and that is exactly what I need it to do for the pieces that are lightened on the bottom, because I want everything to kind of catch up and I don't want anything to break off or anything. So I wanted something super gentle on those previously lightened ends, yet something gentle and strong for the root area that is a lot darker than the ends. Okay, so now that I'm getting a little bit closer towards the top of the crown, you can see my weaves are getting a bit smaller. And again, since she wants something that is pretty solid, I'm just doing weaves all the way back to back because she doesn't want anything dimensional or two-dimensional. So we're just doing some back-to-back weaves with no negative space in between. So since I'm using two different formulas here as well, I'm using a stronger and a weaker one, as I'm going through her whole balayage, I do double check the foils that I did first to kind of see what's going on, especially since this is pretty much a color correction and she has that overtone on the previously lightened ends. So I basically just wanted to double check that everything was kind of lifting at the same pace. Sometimes when doing two different formulas, sometimes I will find that one formula is lifting a little bit too quick compared to the other one, so I'll just kind of adjust it before I get to the rest of the balayage. Also here, as you can see, her ends that are previously lightened outside of the weave, I did go ahead and lighten them with some lightener and just painted over whatever was blonde and put it in a foil just to kind of help the ends to get a little bit brighter and try to get rid of that like neon sunflowery yellow that's on her ends. So now as I'm weaving her money piece, since everything is pretty much weaved back to back, it's going to look overall pretty solid. I am doing about 3 slices with no negative space back to back and then ending it off with a baby light. I did about 2 actually baby lights after the 3 slices to kind of marry everything together with the back weaves. And the reason why I like to do 3 slices back to back is because compared to everything else that is going to have some subtle dimension from the weaving, I wanted the front to still look a little bit lighter, and the only way to do that was to do some solid slices back to back against the rest that is finely weaved or medium-sized weaves. So as I'm going up here on these last sections on the top, I am going up with some medium-sized weave, but as I get closer towards where she parts her hair, which is right in the middle, I'm going to be doing my weaves a bit smaller because I want the lines of the weaves and the line of demarcation and everything to be a bit more seamless. So as I get closer to that middle part, the weaves will start to get a little bit thinner and look a little bit more blended as she wears her hair down. And once again, after I finish each of the sections of weaving, I do balayage the ends of all the hair that is left out from all of the foils just to brighten everything up. And what I'm using for that is pretty much just Blonde Me and 20 because once they're ready, I'm able to quickly rinse them out. So once her root pretty much reached about a level 9, I would say, is when I started to feel like her hair was ready to be rinsed. And at this point, you could see that the ends where I balayaged or wherever she has those previously lightened ends, it is still pretty yellow. It doesn't look like a normal raw lift. It does look a bit more yellow, even though from feeling the hair and seeing how it is in the lightener, I could tell that it is at a level 9 when it still looks a little bit warmer than a level 9. So we've already blow dried the bottom because we're going to be putting a Pulp-Right semi, but you can see the raw lift of her root. It's really pretty blonde, but then the ends are still super yellow, but you can kind of tell they are pretty much the same level. It's just the ends are really stained some yellow tone from whatever that brown overtone that she was using. So here is that Pulp-Right semi. For the semi-tone, I used blush, Cupid, and a little bit of jam just to make it a bit more smoky here. And I'm going in and applying this on the bottom wherever she wants to see that peekaboo pink tone. And the reason why I'm doing this part first is because the semitone needs to stay on for about 25 minutes, and then I'm going to be toning the top with the liquid demi, and sometimes I don't leave that liquid demi on for the full 25 minutes. So since this pink needs to stay on her hair for the full processing time, that is why I started with this color, and it does save some time to do it this way opposed to doing it the other way. So after this, I'm going in with the demi, and then once everything is ready, I'm able to rinse everything out all together. So for my client's demi formulation, it was actually kind of tricky to think of a formula that could keep her as light as possible, but to try and tone out as much warmth as possible. So, and also keep in mind that even though everything is pretty much a level 9, her ends are a bit warmer even though they are technically a level 9. So that kind of threw me off a little bit too, thinking that the ends are stained a bit more of like a brighter yellow. So in reality, it's kind of like almost a level 8, even though it's a very bright level 9. So for the formulation, I had to do a little test run as I applied that semitone just to make sure that our formula didn't turn too ashy or did anything funky with wherever the pieces were that were a bit warmer. So for the formulation, I did 7-0 for the root, and then for the mids and ends, I did 8-2 and 8-11, but I added some more 8-2 just to try and cancel out as much yellow as possible. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. You can see how beautiful that pink is on the underneath, and for her toner I just tried to cancel out as much warmth without it looking too dull, because since that yellow was so bright, putting any type of ash or violet on top of it definitely was starting to look a little too I would say dull, because it was ashing it out too much, and when you use colors that are too opposite from each other, they sometimes can get a little muddy and not look so bright. So I rinsed it off before it got a little too dull, and I feel like the tone now is beautiful and perfect. It created a very nice, soft, warm, neutral tone for her, which is honestly a great starter point for what she had going on and where we were trying to do. So as far as the fade for this color, I did warn her that the yellow peeking through, that like really bright yellow, will come back as this toner fades, and she just needs to come back in for a quick toner refresher once that color starts to bug her again. But again, that is something that she's gonna have to grow out, because that overtone I feel like really stained her hair, and I really don't think it would be a good idea to relighten the ends at all. I would say to just grow it out and just kind of rock it until everything is completely cut off. Alrighty guys, so that is it for this week's episode. Again, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next week.